simplest to the rarest of materials, from the barks and fibers of plants to the densest of hardwood, from paper and clay and precious metals to that most wondrous substance, a mind in flight, expressing itself in a torrent of words. These are the materials from which our traditional artisans and craftsmen have built solid and grounded traditions. Fragments of a nation waiting to be made whole. By men and women who bring an entire culture and knowledge system into their creations. These are the chosen materials of our indigenous craftsmen. They who are the embodiment of Dayaw, our knowledge, our pride. In a world where our natural resources are fast running out, wood and stone have become status symbols, materials associated with expensive building projects. But there was a time when wood and stone were plentiful, when they built great structures dedicated to agriculture, exploration, to the community, to noble ideas like nationhood and spirituality. In our continuing series on Materiales Fuertes, the materials that build a nation, we explore how wood and stone were employed by builders and craftsmen from all over the archipelago to build structures and objects that were vessels for the accumulated knowledge of a community. Wooden artifact speaks more of our resilience, our knowledge of the environment, our ability to adjust to nature's changes than a boat. Our ancestor made and rode on boats that survived perilous journeys across open seas. In Batanes, a land surrounded by rough waters, the skill of a boat builder working in time-tested and traditional ways is still very highly valued.
Nag-umpisa ko ng mag-practice ng magsarili is noong 1980. Nag-umpisa akong gumawa ng bangka. Ang paggawa ng tataya is para sa dagat, sa mga ang una namin paggawa kasi para pangisdahan ng dorado. Dorado, saka flying fish. Kaya namin ginawa yung bangkang ganito kasi nakita namin na mas maganda kaysa doon sa nakita namin na yung may cutting. Gumawa kami ng ganitong itsura ng bangka. Kumbaga kasi wala siyang mababali, saka balanse siya. Kumbaga siya ay sumusunod dun sa kung anong type ng dagat, rough kaya o kaya may plane yung dagat, okay siya. Naglalaro siya, gano'n. Kaya yun ang advantahe nung paggawa ng kahoy na flat bottom ang ng bangka. Ito yung kahoy na ginagamit ko dito is puro Palo Maria. Kasi yung Palo Maria, advantahe niyan is hindi siya basta-basta nabibiyak yung kahoy. Miski na naaarawan o hindi siya nabibiyak. Kaya yun ang asa matibay. Kaya yun ang ginagamit na maraming klaseng kahoy pa na pwedeng gawin, pero the best is itong Palo Maria. Parang tingin mo na lang na kung anong gusto mong flat niya, kung pwede man naman siyang... Kasi kung mas flat siya, mas mabagal siya. Kung mas mabi siya, mas mabilis siya. Mas madali siyang tumakbo pag makitid siya. Itong tatayang ginawa namin ito, hindi purpose for fishing na. Educational bangka. Pag-aralan ng mga estudyante para hindi daw mawala yung old tradition bangka.
knowledge of boat building are the Sama Dilaut of Holo. Their knowledge of boat building and construction was tested in modern times by a man who believed that we have much to learn from indigenous technologies. Art Valdez's journey across ASEAN waters on a wooden boat built by Sama boat builders is his adventure of a lifetime.
So I went to Tawi-Tawi and looked at how they build the boats, and that's how it started. Then I saw that it's still the traditional way of boat building, shell-first construction. If you've noticed, the modern boat building is that once the keel is set, they put up the ribs and then the walls or the sidings. But the shell-first construction is that you have the keel and then you build planks. You build a shell of this kind, and then the ribs is the last part.
The use of stone in Batanes is not limited to the traditional Ivatan homes. Even the final resting place of the dead, the Ijang, utilized rock and boulders to create distinct boat-shaped graves. On these Ijang, the Ivatan ancestors would journey to the world of the spirits on boats similar to the ones their living kin would sail on.
Ang mga boat-shaped grave markers ay ginawa ng aming mga ninuno bilang tanda ng kanilang pagkakalibing sa sariling bayan. Kung bakit naging hugis tataya, or the local name for the rowboat, dahil ang mga Ivatan by nature are sea-rowing people. And the Ivatans believe that there is life beyond what they have here on earth. Na ang pagkaalam nila sa buhay pagka namatay na sila, merong buhay sa kabilang dako kung saan kinakailangan nila na nasa boat sila, they have to row the boat going to where the life after is. The graves vary in sizes because the archaeologists said that the bigger the size is, means that the one buried underneath is a grown-up or a mature one. But the smaller graves are for the juvenile. And they said that the arrangement of the stones has something to do with the social status of the one buried. If it's bigger, he could have been one who has a higher position in the society, say the mangpus or the chieftain. They said that it is close to the sea and it is in an elevated place. A lot of these graveyards are located in elevated places. So maybe because they see the importance of this dead person having life after death, they bury the dead in high places, which is overlooking the sea, because they see the importance of the connection of the land to the sea, to the life after death, where they are heading to. We do not know how long have they been buried here, but the archaeologists studied that they had been here before the Spaniards came to Batanes. They say it's prehistoric.
Of stone and a knowledge of masonry enabled the Ifugao to create the great walls of their terraces, ranging from 3 to 20 feet in height and able to contain both soil and water. No other structure among our indigenous peoples utilizes stone in such a difficult manner, or one that bears such life-giving harvests.
Ito yung mga bato na foundation na sabi namin na kopnad. Ito nakaupo sa bato rin. This is rocks. Pero malalaki ito. Tapos sinundan yung medyo maliit. Tapos yung maliit, pataas. Walang semento, kundi putik lang ang nag-hold dito sa bato.
Sama-sama nating ipagdiwang ang mga bayani ng silid-aralan. Salamat sa inyong pagsisikap at dedikasyon. Patuloy ninyong hinuhubog ang kinabukasan ng kabataan at ng bayan. Good vibes ba kamo? Sagot namin ang umaga ninyo. Mula sa balitaan, bagong kaalaman, hanggang sa Unli Chikahan. Kasama ang RSP Morning Barkada. Rise and Shine Pilipinas. Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 6 na umaga. Dito lang sa PTV. Disaster Watch. Mga paalala pagkatapos ng lindol. Suriin ang iyong sarili at mga kasama kung may tinamong pinsala. Magbigay ng paunang lunas kung kailangan. Unahin ang mga pangangailangan ng mga matatanda, buntis, may kapansanan at mga bata. Kung nasa tabing dagat at may banta ng tsunami, agad na lumikas papunta sa ligtas at mataas na lugar. Suriin kung may natapong nakalalasong kemikal at mga bagay na maaaring pagmula ng sunog. Huwag bumalik sa loob ng gusali hanggat walang abiso na ligtas na ito. Sa panahon ng sakuna, dapat laging listo.
There are still some Filipinos who think that the lack of pre-Hispanic stone structures like a Borobudur or Angkor Wat points to a lack of development, of vision, of purpose among our pre-colonial people, and definitely this is not true. As we have seen, small communities utilized these resources well to create technologies that served their purpose as well. With the Spanish colonization came a new purpose for these resources, to build for the glory of the faith, the empire, and the colony.
Beside the fantastic, beautifully carved
Scholar Regalado Trota, or Ricky Jose, has written major works on the evolution and history of Philippine churches. His knowledge serves as our introduction to the traditions of church building, with wood and stone, with faith and force.
the first churches and chapels were made of simple materials of wood, bamboo, and thatch. That was the material used even until the 19th century, because we see pictures of simple churches in Mindanao using these materials, and some of them were adopting the bahay kubo on stilts. When the Spanish started to build, they realized that there were a lot of calamities that visited the Philippines. When they would build using stronger materials, fire was often a danger also. And here in San Agustin also, it burned down at least 3 times before they started to build the stone one. So by 1570s, by the 1580s, they started to think of building in stone, and that was not an immediate action. Up to the 19th century, I think even up to the early 20th century, they would have churches of stone, and then the pediments or the upper walls of wood or even lighter materials. There was a whole system in gathering the materials. Certain people would go up the mountains to cut wood, lumber. Remember that much of the Philippines was forested before, so they would have to select what kind of wood would be good. And this is the Filipino knowledge of wood. They would know which is the best wood for pillars, which is the best wood for trusses, which is the best wood for walls. So it is a very specific knowledge. Then there were others who did lime. The best lime was from the mountains, because it should not, the less salt, the better, because salt will absorb, hold the moisture. The lime was of different consistencies. No, some it depended on the stone, and the kind of stone, and the kind of construction, and also for the what is called the palitada, which would protect the stone or the brick from all the erosion of the wind. That palitada is a word which Filipinos use from the word paleta to apply the lime covering.
A sight familiar and beloved to most Manileños, a jewel of the faith that has withstood the destruction of Manila in World War II. Ricky Jose took us on a walking tour of the San Agustin Church to understand just how wood and stone were utilized to create this enduring structure. The San Agustin complex is more than just the church and the cloisters that many know. The original structure included both the ruins that now face the bay as well as the adjoining building.
Behind me is a very ancient door, and above it you can barely see the letters for Calle de San Lorenzo. And it's a mystery to us why there is a street name here, but I'd like to connect it to a very ancient ivory image in the collection here, also of San Lorenzo. So maybe this street name can be related to an ancient devotion to San Lorenzo among the Augustinians. That is what survived now because this street is called Santa Lucia. And having said that, I think this may be one of the oldest, if not the oldest, street name in the Philippines.
From the back of the complex, we now move to the iconic wooden doors. With the larger doors are two smaller ones called postigo.
We're now standing beside the fantastic, beautifully carved doors of San Agustin Church. Stylistically, they are from the Rococo period, which in the Philippines is about from the second half of the 18th century, from the 1750s down to the 1790s. I suspect that they are not original to the earlier church, of course, because they later, much later. I suspect that when the British came, when they sacked the church, they destroyed the doors. That's why when the British left, they had to make new doors. So these doors could date from about 1764, that's why they have the Rococo designs. Now, notice here the split in the doorway, which is what the Japanese did to create a space here. They took out this wood, put sandbags, and behind it there were machine guns. So anybody who would cross those streets could be hit by machine gun fire, covered by the sandbags, unsuspecting that there was machine guns on here. This is one of 4 Chinese lions, and there are a few others in the other parts of the patio. And it stands as a symbol of the Augustinians inculturating of the Chinese elements into the Catholic Church.
Inside the church, more treasures, as well as clues as to wood and stone were used.
We are standing in front of the tomb of Legazpi, the founder of the Spanish city of Manila. His bones were interred here in some of the chapels in San Agustin, but they were upturned when the British sacked the church in 1762. In 1945, during the fight between the Japanese and the Americans, a bomb from US launched from the University of Santo Tomas made a direct hit in this chapel, so everything was damaged. And so after the war, this chapel was renovated into the Chapel of Legazpi. And the frontal that we saw a while ago came from this chapel. This was originally the San Fausto Chapel. This is the inscription on the bell, Fecit Benitus a Regibus, which means made by Benito de los Reyes. Benito de los Reyes was one of the most important early 19th century bell casters in Manila. So there's a long line of bell casters in the Philippines. We can see here, very faintly, the inscription 300 and the symbol for a unit of weight in pounds of this bell. This is the bell that used to hang on the left bell tower of the church. And in the earthquake earthquake of 1863, the bell crashed to the ground. 1863 or 1880, the bell crashed to the ground, and it has never moved until recently, and eventually it has moved to this place. The pulpit was installed in 1627. The carving is very similar to some of the frontals on display in the museum. And you see the twisted columns, but also they are the kind that you can insert a finger in between the carvings. So very, very rare. And so that gives us a clue to similar carvings where you can put your finger inside.
Then on to the brick dome and the great stone staircase that leads to the second floor of the cloisters.
Leading to the second floor of the monastery, and it is distinguished by huge slabs of granite called locally piedrocina. They were imported from China. They were believed at the time to be ballast from the ships, but now we know that they were also brought here really to be sold as building stones for paving.
And finally, to the Sileria, or choir loft, with an enigmatic altar awaits.
This is an assemblage of these parts from different retablos from the different areas of the monastery and the church. And this was put together in the 1960s when most of the church is being restored for the 1965 celebration of Christianization of the Philippines. So, for example, this frontal of Augustinian saints comes from the San Fausto retablo, which used to be the left of the main altar. That chapel was replaced by the chapel of Legazpi. So it was brought up here. And here we can see different Augustinian saints. Here is the Augustinian seal, the heart of St. Augustine pierced by 2 arrows by the love of God, and bishop's mitre, bishop's hat. And there are 3 scenes of St. Nicholas of Tolentino, who was one of the major Augustinian saints all over the world, but especially in the Philippines. This is St. Nicholas appealing to a soul, appealing for help. And this is St. Nicholas in a storm, steering a boat to safety. And here is St. John of Sagun with the ciborium. And this is Santa Clara de Montefalco with the balance. And this is St. Thomas of Villanueva. So you can see the very Baroque, or what you call Solomonic columns, listed columns, put together from some retablo. These panels are actually placed upside down because the fruit should be drooping down and not going up. And above there is a symbol which you cannot identify. And then the very topmost, there are 2 smaller volutes which are more proper for the side of a retablo and not for the pediment. The lower part of the base is 17th or early 18th century. That part of the pedestal comes from the 19th century, mid-19th century, late 19th century. And the crucifix stylistically is from the 17th century. This can be considered like an icon of the different stages of history of San Agustin.
Inside the choir loft, which is currently being renovated, a wealth of clues as to how the original structure was first built and how wood and stone came together in creating this monument.
These details here appear, how the woodwork is fit into the stone. And certain gaps here are interesting. And also, on the other side, there are holes for beams, which don't necessarily match the beams to hold this floor. So these talk about different construction periods.
Sa isang malayang demokrasya, mahalaga ang pagiging bukas. Mahalaga ang partisipasyon ng bawat isa dahil karapatan ng lahat na makibahagi sa mga usapin at pagbuo ng mga batas para sa isang bagong Pilipinas. Congress TV. Tutukan ang mga sesyon ng Kongreso sa PTV at sa aming digital platforms. Kahit saan, kahit kailan, watch democracy in action. Congress TV. Health Watch, alertong pangkalusugan. Mag-ingat sa dengue. Ang dengue ay isang viral infection na nagmumula sa kagat ng lamok na Aedes na sanhi din ng iba pang sakit gaya ng Zika virus at chikungunya. Ito ay nagdudulot ng mataas na lagnat, pamamantal, pananakit sa likod ng mata at ulo, kasukasuan at kalamnan na pwedeng magtuloy sa severe dengue na may kasamang pananakit ng tiyan at pagsusuka, pagdurugo at hirap sa paghinga. Ang mga sintomas ay karaniwang nagtatagal mula 2 hanggang 7 araw. Tandaan ang 4S sa laban natin kontra dengue. Suriin at sirain ang mga pinamumugaran ng lamok. Sarili ay protektahan. Sumangguni agad sa pinakamalapit na doktor o pagamutan at suportahan ang fogging at spraying activities kapag may banta ng outbreak. Tandaan, sa panahon ng sakit, dapat laging listo. Get an inside look at the seat of power. Malacanang Insider. Your authoritative source for current developments, presidential directives, and accurate, reliable information straight from the palace. Hosted by Malacanang Press Briefer Daphne Osenia Paez. Malacanang Insider airs Mondays and Fridays, 12 noon, and Wednesdays and Thursdays, 11 a.m. Only here on the People's Television.
The restoration of the Sileria was begun with a grant from the Spanish government and has been continued with the support of Filipino corporations and individuals. Another eminent scholar, Esperanza Bunag Gatbonton, has been in charge of this restoration. She guides a team of young and dedicated artisans and craftsmen, all trained at the Escuela Taller. In the hands of passionate and established scholars like Esperanza Bunag Gatbonton and Regalado Trota Jose, much the arcane knowledge that built and decorated San Agustin is passed on and made relevant again. But in the hands of these young Filipinos from Escuela Taller, the ravages of time are arrested. The new blends with the old, and more generations will yet come to enjoy and take pride in San Agustin. From the stone Idiang graves to the terrace stone walls of the Cordillera, from the wooden boats of the Ivatan to the speedy, sturdy vessels of the Sama, from the great stone churches of the Spanish colonizers to the enduring furniture and carvings, wood and stone have helped shape the most indelible images of communities, of explorers, farmers, and of evangelizers, of builders, all who have helped to shape an evolving image of a nation. We have the structures and the objects, but these are only important as reminders of the minds of their creators. Minds alive with Dayaw, our knowledge, our pride.